Furious Driving, proud to be supported by Diamond Bright, protecting, cleaning and caring for the Furious fleet and for yours, with 10% off using code FD10. Follow the links in the description below. Hello and welcome to Furious Driving, and it's another day playing with Sleaze, the V8, the 4.6 litre Rover P6 3500 from 1973, which has now been painted black and got the engine running and is finally approaching the road. Very, very, very close indeed. It's now at that point where lots of little niggly, irritating things to get done, just the final finishing touches before we take this thing actually out on the road for the first time. In this event, I've been doing lots of stuff that takes a long time. Doesn't really make a lot of good content, however, it needs to be done. I spent a while polishing this side of the car and the boot lid, which has now been rained on again, so it looks dirty once more. But this is really, really crusted. Loads of nastiness just kind of bedded into the paint. So I clay barred it, then used Diamond Bright 1 cut, Diamond Bright 1 finish, and having buffed it clean, used ceramic glaze, the instant ceramic coating that you put on these things. And the doors on this side and the rear wing have come up just absolutely beautifully. It's like a massive mirror, it's fabulous. I have spent a lot of hours fiddling with this bonnet catch, which I was playing with the last two episodes. I still can't make the bloomin' thing come together. I've taken the slam panel off, hammered it flat, put it back, tweaked it, marked the position of where I've gone to and from. No position seems to be happy. It's either locked down or won't fasten. So once the thing is actually up and running, I'm gonna have to take it to Hawk Classics, get those guys to have a look at it, see if they can figure it out for me, because I am lost the ability to figure that one out. And also in this episode, you're going to make a lot of people very happy indeed, because I'm going to put a hubcap over some of the red wheel. Now, before I get too far into this video, I want to have a quick chat about some of the questions that people have been talking about. I did address a few things in the previous video, things like, will I be upgrading the brakes? Well, I'll probably be putting sounds like a Spitfire going over at the moment. There probably will be actually a Spitfire going over at the moment, because they fly passenger right at some head corner and they turn just over there somewhere, and you can often see it. It is. Hang on. I suspect you can't see that, but you might be able to hear it. That's a crow. As I was saying, we'll upgrade the brakes. Yes, I'll probably put some fast road pads and maybe some vented and grooved discs in the front at some point. You can get a bigger brake caliper conversion, which is something that's pretty worth doing, I think. And what else is there to do? I've not got the power steering pump on there. I'll leave it off for the moment because I'll see how it runs without it, because my 2 litre one has never had power steering, and that's fine to drive. The big question though is, loads of people said this, every other comment seemed to be, this car is 50 years old, why are you bothering to MOT it? And the answer is, it's a 50-year-old car. It's been off the road for a decade, and I want to make sure that the thing is actually as safe as it possibly can be. In the meantime, I have actually applied for MOT exemption from the DVLA. I posted the paperwork off a while ago now, but I haven't heard anything back yet. I do also need to be converting the car to historic status, so I don't have to pay road tax on it, which is another thing I don't want to do. I want to take it to a classic specialist garage, somewhere like Hawk or TJ Motors in Oxted, one of those two people, because they can then go over the car, they can inspect it, they can find anything I've missed on it, they can sort out things like that bonnet catch I can't do. They can sort out that brake bleed on the back of this, which on a 4-post lift would be relatively easy rather than lying on your back in the dirt. Those kind of things. Just go through the entire car and confirm the car is safe. And having confirmed it's safe, I can then get an MOT on it, so I have like a bit of paper so I can say it is safe as well. I want the car to be provably a safe and reliable car. I don't want my own optimistic, I'm sure it's fine, to be the thing that's keeping this car on the road. I want someone with no vested interest in it to be able to say, yeah, you're fine there, don't worry about it, it's good. So that's why I want to get an MOT on it. I honestly think it's ridiculous that there's no requirement for cars over 40 to have any MOT, because a car that's 40 years old, even if you don't use that car year on year more than a couple hundred miles, that's probably the worst thing you can do to it, in fact, because parts will just deteriorate, rubber parts will degrade, tyres will perish, rust will appear, and if you're not going underneath it frequently, you won't know about it. So I think it's ridiculous that you don't have an MOT. You should always have some kind of independent inspection. Even if it's like a classic garage who do an independent inspection for you, you need to have someone to look at it. And that's the very least I'm going to get done on this car, is an independent inspection. And I will, having had that done with its MOT exemption, so I can keep on driving it to and from, and confirmed everything's working properly, then I'll have an actual MOT done. So I've got a bit of paper. And the other thing was that the DVLA would not accept an engine change from me without an MOT to say the car had been inspected. I know some people commented that saying that they had an engine change, different engine number, capacity, whatever, done on their V5 document. That, if you're watching abroad, the V5 is a document that says you own the car and it's got all the specifics of the car on it. They've had DVLA allow that to happen. I tried to send the paperwork off and they didn't want to do it. So in this particular car's case, they want an MOT. DVLA wanted an MOT. So I'm kind of slightly over a barrel having to have one. Otherwise, I can't register the fact it's got a different engine in it. The insurance company know, but the DVLA don't. As I've said previously, jacking up Rover P6s is something of a nightmare because of the way that the structure of the car is. The jacking points really aren't very good jacking points. They weren't great when they were new. 50 years later, they're even worse. So you've got choices at the back of the differential. If you've got a really, really long jack, you can go underneath the spring point where the spring meets the trailing arm, if you can get to both sides of the car at once. Or you can use this pad here under the rear valance, which is part of the structure itself. You do need a very high lift jack to get underneath it though. And then you can put something underneath the trailing arms themselves. Now this is probably a long way from essential, as the brakes seem to work really quite well as it goes, but as the brake fluid has been in there a while, I wouldn't mind bleeding it through just to get some fresh stuff in there. Just a peace of mind thing. Right, not that I don't like being underneath these things when they're jacked up, but we have got the jack, some blocks of wood to catch the wheel if it falls, 3 axle stands, and an awful lot of luck, I hope. If there's anything I don't like doing on a P6, it's anything to do with the rear brakes, because they are inboard, which means they're above the rear axle. So your rear calipers are up here. Big old units up there. Fortunately all seems to work. So finding the bleed is a task in itself. This is easier if you're on a 4-post lift, to be honest. For the curious among you, it is just there above that brake disc. Okay, there was a slight mission failure on that one because I could not move that bleed nipple and I didn't want to risk breaking it, so I've soaked it in some release fluid, I've put it on the ground. I'll have another go in a few days, but the brakes seem pretty effective at the moment, so I'm not going to panic over it, because I did do a partial bleed at the front when I changed that caliper. Well, while the car is more or less done underneath, got a little bit of interior work, hitting the back by the door, got a bit of interior work to sort out, just a centre console area, pretty easy to put back. Just to give you an idea of how long this car has been off the road for, I just spotted this in the footwell. This is the mobile phone plug charger that was last in the car when it last drove. If you can figure out what model of phone that was for, I'll give you 10 banana points, because I've no clue what this was from. That's quite a chunky old phone, maybe a Motorola? No, must be newer than a Motorola. Whatever it was, it had GSM in it, so exciting times, but not recent times. I do have plans for this though. I'll quickly talk you through what is going to happen there. So my plans for the audio setup in this car, obviously listening to the radio will come secondary to listening to the engine, which will sound glorious. This is the radio that came with the car. I assume it's original from the 1970s. It's medium wave and long wave, which doesn't pick up a lot of stuff anymore. Probably Motorola, I guess. But anyway, Rover very thoughtfully put an actual full-size single-DIN slot behind this cover, which just pops straight off, so you can put a modern radio. So if I get something like, I think it's the Blaupunkt sort of vintage style radios, that will fit in there and not look too out of place. Currently the only speaker in the car is this one here, which is not even in great condition. Mono, because mono means one, obviously. There is a second speaker slot in the centre of the rear parcel shelf, underneath where that blue box is, which gives you the weirdest stereo setup you've ever seen. In the white P6, what I've done is I've got 2 very small Alpine speakers, mounted them on MDF at kind of 45-degree angles, pointing out towards the driver and the passenger, hidden inside this speaker area here. That's because I didn't want to cut into the door cards. In this car though, we don't have any door cards. What we have got is holes in the door, which are big enough for a small speaker, and I'm going to have to custom make some door cards or buy some new ones, so I can make some door cards with speakers hidden behind the trim, so we can go for stereo sound and a decent radio. But for the time being, as I haven't got any of that stuff, I'm just going to pop it all back together as is. This does actually work. I'm not sure what station I'm listening to right now, but it's the one in the middle with a red light on it. Talk radio of some kind. Let's give this centre area here a quick squiz with the vacuum before anything goes back, so at least it's not covering up dirt before I put it back together again. This centre console is really easy to fit, to be honest. This handbrake rubber gaiter is a thing that breaks all the time. We'll probably have to go and order one of those before too long, because it's going to be really annoying and bother me no end. That just slots over the handbrake. That's now slotted into place. What I need to find now, which is probably in one of the ashtrays down here, I hope, there's a captive nut that slides in there, screws in with that, and a couple of nuts down here to bolt that on. Then we're in. Like those nuts I'm looking for have made a temporary bid for freedom, so I can move on to putting this on instead, because at least then I can change the gear without hurting my fingers so much. Right, now we can put on this thing, which is like the selector pneumatic-y guide jobby. We can ignore the P button because it hasn't got that anymore. But a Facebook conversation on the P6 group the other day was saying these things are worth like 80 quid, apparently. I find that hard to believe, but there you go. Oh, I forgot to put it on before the rubber bit. That's too wide now. Oh, little push button slots on top. And that can stick on top of there. Now I've got an actually nice to use gear shift that doesn't hurt your hand when you pull the lever, which is fabulous. And now perhaps the most important thing of all, the little panel with the word V8 on it, so everyone knows when they get in the car, it's got a V8 in it. Oh, suddenly it looks like a car again. There are some screws to put into. The only thing is, now I've made the interior nice, I can't keep climbing over it. I'm going to have to turn it around so I'm not looking at the lovely face of the car. Well, the car turned around. I've now finally got the last screw down there, so this is now fixed in properly. And I've given the entire bonnet area, under bonnet area, a bit of a spruce up, so it looks a bit tidier now. Just basically some waterless wash and wax quick detailer, done bright stuff on the inner wings, up on that valance, just make it all look a bit nicer. Unfortunately, because I hadn't screwed this end down, the thing popped up, and I hadn't realised it was going to do that. And where I fitted one of the wipers, it scratched it, so that's really rather annoying, but not a lot we can do about that. I popped that wiper back off again, partly because I wasn't happy with the position on the screen I fitted it to, and partly because the wiper blade I fitted actually started falling apart because it's an old one, so I need to fit newer wiper blades to it. So my list of 1,000 things grows ever shorter, but one of the things that needed to be done was to fit new wiper blades. So I popped down to Halford's with one of the old wiper blades and showed it to the lady in the shop, and she said, "God, is that a rear wiper or something? Because it's incredibly tiny." I said, "No, it's a front wiper off an old car." So this is, what, about, well, it's that long basically. They did have them in stock, but they're like 12 quid for a tiny, tiny little thing like that, which is crazy. It's about £2.70 for a pair of cut-downable refills like that. So, yeah, saved about £10 by going somewhere else. Sorry, Halfords. Normally you're quite good, but not in this case. So that then just fiddles through all of there. This is one of those things which is way more tricksy than it ought to be. Oh, it's too narrow. That's annoying. That's why it's so cheap. It's too flipping narrow. Bother. Yeah, this is the width of the refill that you buy for £2. This is the backing plate, the metal strip backing plate from the ones that are like a tenner, and that's the difference. So I've not saved £10 after all. I've spent an extra £2. Oh well, I was going to get some more of them later. Add that to the list of things to buy. Something I noticed when I was fitting the reflectors, this wing isn't secured at the bottom, and what it is, there are a pair of little holes, one down here in the bottom to the valance, and one slightly further underneath there, which are just missing a couple of bolts. That's an easy fix. I'll sort that out now. Oh, slightly bad times. I did actually find out that it's not the two small bolts that are holding this wing on that are making it loose. What it is, there is a fourth of the 4 large bolts that hold it in, that bolt in underneath by the exhaust pipe, and the little bracket that it bolts onto. The wing is fine, the car is fine, the bracket in the middle has rusted through, so I need to do a little tiny bit of welding next time. So in the next video you'll see this wing coming off and a bit of welding happening. Now this, I'm sure, will cheer the hearts of many to fit. There we go, I'm sure that'll make a lot of people very happy. I'm going to keep with the red wheels for the time being. I really want to get the hot rod style spiders that go across the middle with a little point out the middle and little points over the 5 nuts. But yeah, that's just a temporary thing. I would like to get some different sort of semi-period, maybe after alloy wheel things, not the Rover SD1 ones, and not the ones that you might have seen before in other cars. I want to do something a little bit different, maybe not something that's so obvious that's been seen previously, just something unique to make the car stand out a touch. But it's just finding that right thing. Anyway, right, that's that done. I'm sure many people will be very happy to see that hubcap back on again. Well, there we go. The car is ostensibly drivable. It's pretty much done as far as making a running driving car is concerned. We're now really just waiting on Bureaucracy to send me a bit of paper to say I can take it down the road without an MOT attached to it, because I'm sure if I took it for an MOT right now, it would fail on something. Whether it's the fact that you can't open the bonnet without a spanner, which potentially is an issue. I don't know what the rules actually, I need to find that out. I'm sure they'll find something which would then be awkward to fix within the 7 days for a free retest. And I don't want a fail on the car's history either, so I wanted to go and take it to a classic garage first, then take it for an MOT. But everything is done. The car runs, it drives, it stops, it steers, the lights all work, the horn works, as from the last video, and it's looking better and better with all the polishing and the tidying. Oh yeah, I haven't actually put the wipers back on again. The car is ready to go. It's just waiting on a bit of paper, and that's so frustrating because I would love to be out a sunny day like today, just cruising in the thing right now. But yeah, I'm sure it won't be long. And as soon as that form, the V112, wherever it is, MOT exemption, pops up in the post, I will take you out in the car and we'll have a drive in the 4.6 P6. If I get too frustrated, I might just risk an MOT, but I kind of don't want to because, you know, I don't want to risk that fail. It's tricky, innit? Anyway, thank you for watching and thank you for following the journey of this car. And yeah, hopefully the next time you see it, it will be actually driving down the road, which is exciting, isn't it? Thank you for watching. Oh, like and subscribe, all that kind of stuff.